You're listening to Behind the Deal, a Central Commercial Group podcast, helping California businesses through the whole process of commercial real estate.
Please join me in welcoming Natalie Collins, President of the California Association of Wine Grape Growers, also known as COG. Natalie has been a steadfast advocate for California's wine grape growers since joining COG in 2015 as Director of Member Relations. She was appointed president in December of 2022, bringing with her a wealth of experience and deep commitment to the industry. A graduate of California State University, Chico, Natalie holds a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Business with minors in Organizational Communications and Business Administration. Prior to her tenure at COG, she served as the Program Director for the San Joaquin Farm Bureau Federation and is a 2015 graduate of the Leadership Farm Bureau program. Under her leadership, COG continues to champion the interests of wine grape growers across California. The state boasts approximately 618,000 acres of vineyards, cultivating over 110 varieties of wine grapes in 49 of its 58 counties. COG is proud to represent an industry that provides significant contributions to California's economy, including a $73 billion in annual economic activity and supporting 422,000 full-time equivalent jobs. Natalie oversees the association's operations and spearheads legislative efforts while advancing initiatives in sustainability, pest and disease management, and trade policy. Please welcome Natalie Collins. Welcome back to Behind the Deal, a Central Commercial Group podcast. My name is Ethan Bronson, and today we have a special guest here today, the president of COG, also known as the California Association of Wine Grape Growers, Natalie Collins. Natalie, thank you for being here.
Ethan, thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. How's your week going?
You know, it's going well. We're only on Tuesday, and it feels like it should be a Friday, so can't complain, though.
Definitely. Definitely getting warmer around here, too.
It sure is.
Well, before we get into it, I think now is a good time to kind of explain to the listeners how we know each other. I think, this is kind of an ironic one almost. I can either tell a story, or if Natalie, if you want to tell it from your perspective, because I'm sure we have two drastically different perspectives on it.
Ethan, I'm curious to hear yours, and then I'll chime in with any details.
Awesome. So this was back in January at the Unified Symposium, where this is, the time that I thought that we had met. I had just got done with a pretty severe knee surgery. I was up in the area, had a doctor's checkup. So my mom kind of brought me along to the Unified Symposium, which was a fantastic time. I had never been before, but definitely needed a wheelchair for all the sites. But it was one of the first activities. It was the luncheon on Tuesday, and my mom we got in a little late, so she went to go check in across the street because I couldn't really crutch across the street that far and come back to the lunch before making in time. And this lady had come up to me and she's like, "Oh, I'll escort you to your table." I may have still been on some drugs at the time, so I was just kind of going along with this. And you had taken me to my table to where the rest of my family was, and there was some person introducing everybody, and they said, "Well, introducing the president of COG, Natalie Collins." I was like, "Whoa, that lady just took me to my table. What's happening?" And then as you took me to my table, you told me that you used to babysit me. I don't even know how long ago. You probably tell the story better than me, but my dad used to teach at the high school that you went to. The rival, matter of fact, where I went to high school, Lodi and Tokay. It's not a very big town. But yeah, that's kind of, how we got reintroduced to each other.
Yeah, that is a good overview. And yes, Ethan's father used to be my FFA teacher, which was, when I got into ag earlier on in life. And then Ethan's mother is actually a past chair of our association's board, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about what the California Wine Grape Growers does, but it really feels like we've been connected through obviously your family, longtime grape growers throughout the entire, all of California. So a real full circle moment to see you at the Unified Wine and Grape Symposium, and to now myself run an association that your family has been involved in for the past 50 years.
Yeah, and you guys just celebrated 50 years. Was that in 2024?
We did. So just last year, 50 years of the association. And maybe now would be a great time to just give a plug for what we do and who we are. So we are the California
Absolutely.
Association of Wine Grape Growers. It is a statewide group that represents wine grape growers. We're mainly kind of the lobbying arm of the industry. So we do state, federal, and regulatory work, all for the benefit of the California wine grape grower. So really, I feel that our main job is to fight the battles in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. to ensure that our growers can stay farming and contributing to producing some of the finest quality wines.
Yeah, and you have a ton of great resources on your guys' website, so be sure to check it out if you're interested. Give it a little bit more backstory on COG in my family. So my mom was the first female chair of COG. I think she spent some time as interim president. I think I've probably been to some of those meetings in my childhood. I think I vaguely remember. My grandfather was chair of COG. I think my great uncle and my cousin were also on the board. But yeah, pretty extensive history.
Yeah, and actually, in celebrating our association's 50th anniversary, just in November of 2024, we actually highlighted the Ledbetter family. And your family, Ethan, has had somebody on our board every single year for the past 50 years. So whether between a grandfather, an aunt, and uncle, you name it, you know, a real long association with COG, but also obviously in the wine grape industry.
That's a great fun fact. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So just wanted to get into it a little bit. You talked about, you know, what COG, what role they play, but what you want to talk a little bit more about what role does COG play in the shaping of the future of California agriculture? Because obviously today, post-COVID, post mid-drought, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of issues facing California agriculture. Is there anything that you want to talk about more in depth?
Yeah, so a lot of our focus is really looking at different policies that affect viticulture in our industry. We work to promote sustainable farming practices, support research and education initiatives. All of the work that we do is really to promote the long-term viability and the success of wine grape farming in California. We actually operate a sustainability program called the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance. And that is something that wine grape growers and winery facilities alike can get certified through. There is a whole host of sustainable code of management that you have to walk through to get certified. But we're certainly invested in the land as well. When we're looking at the state level, I mean, everything you can associate with farming, whether it's looking at the regulatory cost of farming, the cost of labor, you name it, those are all kind of things that we're focused on here at the state level.
Awesome. Are there regions in California where you're seeing an increased demand, whether in the land itself or attention that you're seeing in vineyard development, or just where attention needs to be spent?
Yeah, so pretty unique with California wine grapes. There are wine grape vineyards in 49 of the state's 58 counties. So we are certainly a part of California's fabric. I think if you look at folks that are, if you look in any one given region today, you're likely going to see a wine grape property up for sale. We're in challenging times right now for the California wine industry and actually the global wine industry. I think when you're looking at those that are purchasing new land or expanding into new regions, a lot of it is very strategic in what that property buyer is looking for. It might be something like soil quality, water availability, climate resilience, or really compatibility with a grape varietal that they're looking to buy. So I'd say a lot of the purchasing today or the expansion is really more of a strategic approach with what that company or individual is looking to do with the land. I do think what's unique about wine grapes is we have the ability to graft if you're currently producing a varietal, you do have the opportunity to graft over to a new varietal. And we don't see that amongst many commodities in the permanent crop space. So for those looking to invest in a vineyard, you're not, stuck with that one varietal. You do have options.
Awesome. Oh, that was really well in depth. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about yourself and how you got started. I saw, we talked about you going to Tokay here in Lodi. You graduated from Chico State. You want to talk a little bit about your upbringing and your career?
Yeah, I got introduced to agriculture early on. As Ethan said, I grew up in Lodi, which is predominantly a vineyard area. My family actually, was more involved in the dairy industry growing up. It's not something that my father continued on with, but I was exposed to ag through programs like 4-H and FFA and really found an interest and a passion in agriculture. And I knew when going to college and looking at something to major in, I had to pick something that I was passionate about. I think the old saying goes, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I felt that passion for ag. So I did go to Chico State and I majored in agricultural business and got 2 minors in organizational communications and business administration, and was really trying to find what sector of agriculture I wanted to work in. Upon graduating, I did work for the San Joaquin Farm Bureau. If anyone's familiar with Farm Bureau, an incredible organization that represents all of agriculture, really more in the realm that COG does, and they are an advocacy group. So in working with San Joaquin Farm Bureau, I definitely got an intro to policy and advocacy work. And with San Joaquin County being heavily, invested with wine grape growers in the region, I really began to fall more in love with wine grape growers and obviously the product that they're producing. So in I think it was the 2015 timeframe, there was a job open here at COG for a director of member relations, and I applied to that, was hired then. So I've been with the association. This year will actually be 10 years in November. But just back in 2022, I was honored to be appointed as president of the association. So my work here is really focused on, my background in membership and bringing more growers into the association to ensure that we're providing them with the resources and work that we are doing. In my role today, I do handle all of our federal affairs as well as our industry relations and generally just, operating the association. Ethan, you mentioned earlier about the Unified Wine and Grape Symposium. That is something that is held in Sacramento every January. And it's really the largest industry trade show for the wine industry. It brings together over 10,000 people over 3 days. There is a 2-story trade show that, spans, I think it's the length of 3 football fields. So it's about 900 exhibits, and you'll see anything in there from vineyard equipment and supplies all the way through to labeling and corks and, transportation, whatnot. So it's really an all-encompassing show, and that is something that we, as the association, put on with our partners, the American Society for Enology and Viticulture. So I'd say if you're looking to get a really great overview of the entire industry, register and come to Unified, because there is really something for everyone there, from educational sessions, I think there's about 25 of them, to the trade show. And you really buried the lead there, Ethan. You didn't share who the keynote speaker was at last year's show or this year's show.
I know. Yeah. So Pink actually did a luncheon where she talked about her whole upbringing in the wine industry. I think she said that she's been in it now for 11 years, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so this
down in Santa Barbara County.
Yeah, this is
very
Pink.
Interesting story.
Yeah, Pink the singer. So her obviously non-stage name is Alicia Moore, and she runs Two Wolves Wines, and she was our keynote speaker at the 25 show and talked about her entrance into the industry. And I consider her to be a true farmer. She is someone that is farming daily, very familiar with her vineyard and her land, and has a great brand and great story. So I think we bring in folks from every aspect of the industry to Unified each year.
Yeah, and what I found super impressive about that is many times when you hear that a celebrity's got a new wine that's out or a new bottle of tequila or whiskey, whatever it is, you may have a certain impression on how it's going to be. But I was very, very impressed with how she spoke about the wine industry, how she spoke about her process, and her unique take on it, because she was very much into animal sustainability, making sure that she's taking care of the land. And I was just very impressed by everything, because it seems like, when she's not performing, 100% of her time is spent in the vineyard. So I was very impressed.
I would agree. You can tell she's put in the work and she made comments about scheduling her tour dates around ensuring she's home for harvest each year. So she has a deep appreciation, not just for wine in the glass, but also for the process in which it's made. And it was just a great reminder, I think, at this year's show about why we are all in this industry and really bringing back the passion aspect of it all.
Hmm. How did that connection start?
With Alicia Moore. So
Yeah.
her vineyard manager is actually a past board member of our association. She's, she told us at this year's show that she went to Unified about 10 years ago when she was just, getting started more into the wine industry. So she's no, I would say, stranger to the industry. She shows up at events. She's out and about, but our connection was really through the Santa Barbara community and the manager that aids in her vineyard.
That's awesome. Wanted to talk a little bit more about your leadership, going through college and even past experiences, even in high school. How did that happen? Did you always feel like you kind of assumed a leadership position? Was that something that was natural to you, or something that you learned along the way?
I think programs like 4-H and FFA really helped in, developing leaders with so many of those programs from whether it's speaking components to job interview to you name it, just a lot of opportunity for self-development. I also grew up playing a lot of sports, and I think sports are a great way to develop leaders. I know, Ethan, you're no stranger to sports and even playing in college, but a great opportunity to be part of a team and to, really feed off of each other in a leadership aspect. Many times I feel leaders think they need to lead 100% of the time. And I think it's knowing when to lead and when to follow. And things like sports, I think, really help bring out those abilities. I've been very active in, I would say, nonprofit groups and volunteering groups in any ways to really further develop myself as a leader. After college, I went through the Farm Bureau Leadership Program, which really teaches you more about agriculture and about developing your leadership ability. So I'd say all of my experiences kind of through all of these different programs and volunteer and sports have all kind of, I guess, led me to where I am today.
Yeah, and you said sometimes people feel like they need to be leaders just by saying, but a lot of it is by action, and I would say that doesn't stay away either from the agriculture industry. Leading by doing and lead by example is super important. How would you say that translates to taking care of the land that farmers are on, and sustainability and other practices?
Yeah, well, I know you wanted to throw a learn by doing in there. I felt you trying to tiptoe around it, but the old motto. I feel that what I see of our grape growers is they really are good stewards of the lands. You see in agriculture families that are generational farming, and that doesn't just happen by luck. You see an investment into not only in the land and the communities, and it takes a great deal of leadership to do things the right way. And I can certainly say amongst our grape growing group that they are invested in doing things right. I talked about that sustainability program earlier. That is a voluntary sustainability program that our growers have decided to invest in because they want to ensure that, what that program does is it also provides a toolkit on, hey, here are opportunities and options you can look at in your operation to ensure that you're being sustainable. And it really is not just about the land. Again, it's about, is a grower involved in their community? Are they paying, fair and sustainable wages to their workforce? That program goes so much further. And again, I think it all really dials back to wanting to be leaders and wanting to leave the land not only better than when they got it, but make sure that it's sustainable for the next generation.
That's awesome. We'll be back in just a moment. This episode of Behind the Deal is brought to you by our team at Central Commercial Group. We're expanding fast across California, now active from San Diego County all the way to Sacramento. From vineyards and hospitality properties to warehouses, office buildings, and everything in between, our team brings decades of experience across all sectors of California commercial real estate. But more than anything, we're relationship driven because at Central Commercial Group, it's not just about closing deals, it's about building long-term trust. Central Commercial Group, real estate that works, relationships that last. And we're back. Natalie's going to talk to us a little bit about, some numbers economically, production-wise, and even the history of COG and their annual crush report that we put out. So Natalie, take us away.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it'd be important to add some value to just what does the California wine grape industry look like. Each year, our growers and wineries actually invest in producing a California wine grape crush report. And this is produced through the California Department of Food and Agriculture in cooperation with the United States Department of Ag's National Statistics Services. So what this crush report does is it actually surveys all California wineries and asks them the amount of grapes that they crushed that year, which means the amount of grapes that were delivered to their winery that went through the crush pad that will get made into wine, essentially. So this report is available on CDFA's website, and you can go and take a look back at the acreage or the tonnage that has been crushed in past years. We just got our crush report for the 2024 harvest in the January timeframe, and we produced around 2.87 million tons of wine grapes, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but that was actually our lightest crush in the past 10 years. And this is due to a number of factors, not all weather related this year, a lot of market conditions that actually contributed to that lighter crush. But it is a good report to also be able to view the average pricing by crush district. You can see how much of what varietal is grown in any given district. So I think when looking at land values, it's a really important report to pull. For example, if you're looking to buy a vineyard in the Paso Robles area that has Chardonnay on it, I would pull up that grape crush report, look at the average district price for that region for Chardonnay, and I think it'll really help factor in the figures of what you're working with on that vineyard. So that's a little bit about the crush report. That is something that our association helped start way back in the day, and it's something that is produced each year along with a grape acreage report that really charts the entire acreage in the state.
Yeah, and I think what's super interesting about that was, in that 50th anniversary video that you put out, you were interviewing some past board members, and just listening to them talk about why that was important to them, because they were wanting to know, what their neighbors were doing and what they were up to. I think that's just incredibly interesting way to bring that upon, almost 50 years ago.
Yeah, it feels like transparency in pricing almost. Yeah, to know what your neighbor is doing or making, and to really set benchmarks and averages for districts. Certainly good for decision making for California wine grape growers to have access to that, that kind of data.
Mm-hmm. And what other economic information may you be able to provide, just maybe on return on the land that farmers are buying or leasing, or anything like that?
Yeah, I would, kind of pivoting a tiny bit, we look a lot at the economic contributions of our industry, not only to California, but across the United States. And our association, along with the Wine Institute, produced an economic impact report back in 2022 that really talks about what is the economic contribution in California. And this goes down to not only contribution from, I guess the economic standpoint, but about how much activity we generate, the revenue and taxes, and also the number of employees that the industry employs, and really ties a dollar figure to tourism. If you want to learn more about that, you can look at wineeconomy.com. It's wine-economy.com, and it really lays out all of the data there. What's neat about that website is you can look by any given district. So you can look by a county, you can look by, hey, I want to know what my U.S. Congress district, what the ag contribution in that district is. It really, you're able to break it down in so many different ways. But just from a high level number, I'll give you some of the California stats. So in California, the wine industry employs 422,000 Californians, and we generate $73 billion in annual economic activity. With that, we have about 25.2 million tourists that visit California wineries each year, which generate around $8.6 billion in annual tourism expenditures. So everything that really starts in the vineyard, you can see the vast value from tourism dollars to employees. It all really starts in the vineyard.
What I find interesting and kind of a question about is that number that you're saying, how many people that California employs, is that included in, or is that including H-2A programs? I'm not really entirely sure what percentage, do farmers use, but I know that, especially in Lodi, a lot of farms do use it.
Yeah, I think the H-2A numbers would be included in here. Certainly a program that has become more popular as we just look at a aging domestic workforce. The cost to bring H-2A labor in is significantly more expensive than hiring domestic. With H-2A labor, you do need to provide transportation, housing. There's a whole host that goes along with it that does make that, all-in wage much higher than domestic. But it is something that not only, California growers, whether it's wine grapes or elsewhere, as well as, growers across the U.S. have had to invest in just to have a reliable and stable workforce.
Yeah. And, what I've been able to hear to what that does for people that are coming from those countries or communities, like it does a lot for their families and for those communities and being able to uplift them. So I think, even though it does put a lot of stress on farmers, there is a significant return for everybody being able to uplift those communities.
Absolutely. And like you were saying, many times it is coming in for a shorter period of time, working and sending money back to their families before returning home. So certainly a good partnership and it's something nice to have available to bring in a foreign work source when needed.
Yeah. As we kind of get close to wrapping this up, what's something that most people misunderstand or about the wine industry, or some common misconception that you hear a lot?
Common misconception. I think, one of the biggest things that I've been focused on today is what I call is just kind of a look at the label. Is there are so many wine options when you go to a grocery store, a restaurant, wherever it is, a sporting event. And really, if people pay more attention to the origin on that wine bottle, I think you'll see today that here in the U.S., we actually produce far less wine than we consume. We are the largest wine consumption base in the entire world. Yes, we see that growers are going out of business, wineries are going out of business. We have a hard time competing on price. So I guess my big call out would maybe be just kind of look at the label and see where your bottle of wine is coming from that you're enjoying, and just kind of remember that what supporting local does. Here, our office is located in Sacramento, which is known as the farm to fork capital of the world. They rebranded a few years ago. But if I go into any restaurant here, you're seeing a majority of foreign wines on a label, or on a restaurant menu, and stuff like that just kind of gets my blood boiling with a place that claims to be farm to fork, but somehow wine got left out of that equation. So I think that's just something that's been on my mind a lot lately is I think there's been a big movement of transparency and labeling. People want to know where their food comes from. They want to know what's involved in it, into making it and getting it, onto your kitchen table. So my big call out is look at the label when you're out, and if you're choosing to consume wine, I would just hope that people support local and choose California.
Yeah, highly recommend California wine when you can. And I think what's super cool about it too is, as you said, the more specific you get in location on a bottle of wine, the story is true, it's authentic, and it's part of the whole drinking wine experience. That's what I love about drinking wine, learning about, unique stories.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe that's more of the misconception on wine, is that you have to be a sophisticated wine drinker to enjoy it. And that certainly is not the case. I always encourage people to drink what you like, and there's no right answer. I'll hear a lot of the times, well, what's your favorite wine? What are the good wines? And again, it's something different to every single person. And I would just encourage you to find your own wine journey and don't listen to what other people consider good. Just if you like it, then that's the right choice.
Absolutely. And then lastly, what's just one piece of advice you have for any man or woman going up just in any California business? Doesn't need to be in the wine grape industry or real estate, matter of fact.
What piece of advice do I have for someone in business? Is that the general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess think what your values are in your business and kind of identify those early on and make sure that your decisions along the way are always reflective of your end goals and your core values. I think it's hard to get lost in the day-to-day shuffle of, everything going on in life. So I would say set goals pretty early on and set your kind of value proposition and make sure that you always have a good check-in with both of those along the journey.
Fantastic. Well, Natalie, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Ethan. Thank you so much for having me. And again, if anyone is looking for wine industry resources, especially grape growing, please visit cog.org and happy to connect with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to Behind the Deal, and I appreciate you taking time to tune in. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to subscribe or share it with somebody who might find it useful. We'll see you next time as we continue to explore how real estate, is involved in every part of California businesses. See you guys.
This concludes the episode of Behind the Deal. Be sure to give a review and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Until next time, have a great week, everyone.